Saved by Grubauer. Landeskog going toe-to-toe with Krause. Shoots, score! Wow, Mikko Rantanen.
Wow, that sounds a whole lot better with Mark Mosier's voice on it. For the second episode of the podcast, we figured out whatever the heck was wrong with the audio board for the longest time.
The trick was to plug it in.
Who would have thought? All it took was the right cable, right, to attach it. From the cheap seats, Steve Staeger alongside Geoff Sawtell. And joining us for the entire episode, our good friend from the sports department, Johnny Kurt. Johnny,
hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming in. We appreciate it. It's good to have you here. We were planning, if any of you saw me teasing this on social media, we were going to talk to Lauren Gardner. Unfortunately, her plane got delayed. But Lauren Gardner, the former sideline reporter and kind of did just about everything for Altitude. And I think she also worked for the Avs for a while in the in-game hosting department. She's now doing big things. She's working for the NHL Network, MLB Network, and DAZN, I think is the name of the DAZN.
I've never been completely sure how to pronounce it. I'll take your word.
It's not DAZN. It's not. I'm pretty sure it's not DAZN. I think it's DAZN. But we'll talk to her coming up in a little bit. But we wanted to bring Johnny in. Johnny was one of the first people I thought about when we were even initially launching this podcast, because Johnny has been in the locker room since the very beginning of this whole thing, right? I mean, back in '96.
Oh yeah,
or '95-ish.
I did the first story on the Avalanche.
Well, when was that?
I went up to Quebec and did Stephen Finn, and then they traded him. But I met Martineau first time. Took me out to lunch, and that was the first story we ever did with the Avalanche about the Quebec Snorties coming to Colorado.
Oh, wow. What was the weather like in Quebec when you were there?
It was beautiful because it was still summer.
Oh, okay.
right before training camp.
You didn't do what we did and decide to go there in the middle of January?
Yeah, but you were going on hockey time.
Yeah.
It's also a lot cheaper, I think.
Yeah, it was a lot easier to do. Couple things to clean up. Mikko Rantanen this week talking to the media, I think a little bit as he was trying to work out with I forget where he was working out. It's with another team overseas somewhere, just kind of saying he's not worried about he'll get a deal, right? He'll get a deal.
Oh, absolutely.
I think you probably already have him slotted. Just making sure everything else, because they've been signing some of the other.
What do you think the weight is, though?
I don't know. Maybe they're worried about McKinnon.
They're worried about the number. Do you think they're worried about because you got to think about it. The best guy on your team all of a sudden is not going to be the highest paid guy on your team.
Well, when you're the top 5 players in the league, I would make sure he was happy too.
Yeah. Yeah. By the way, there's some ridiculous video online right now of some guy trying to talk about how Mikko Rantanen's not a great player. One of those hockey bloggers, which teaches you that just about anybody can get in front of a microphone and talk about hockey, which is exactly what we're doing right now. But he was like comparing him to Nathan McKinnon. I'm like, dude, you can't just make that comparison and say, well, he's not good because he's not as good as the guy he plays with.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just seemed like a bad comparison. But
I'm not as good a guitarist as Jimi Hendrix. I mean, that's not really a good comparison here.
Well, I would argue that somebody who could play guitar would be the better. Can you play guitar?
God, no.
No, yeah, I figured not.
Doesn't mean I was wrong with my first statement.
But anyway, the good news: Mikko is at least talking about it, and he says he's confident that a deal is coming. It sounds like Joe Sakic's confident. We talked about that a bit last week, and they would be fools to pass up on that.
Well, and hockey players are pretty good guys too, so they're not going to play that game of I need it now.
Yeah,
and it is a big sort of tonal shift from Ryan O'Reilly, who I try not to mention by name. When they were going through the contract standoff, it was very much a standoff. And like I said, Steve, this one where it's both sides staying open, we're talking, it'll happen. There's not this distance that really gets you worried at this point in the year.
Yeah,
and they have the money.
They do have the money.
It's always helpful.
And I think they're one of the few teams that has the money, from what it sounds like. I mean, Toronto is going through a really rough negotiation trying to figure out how you keep Mitch Marner in the midst of all these higher profile signings that they've done. I'm sure Tyson Barrie didn't go there for very cheap, right?
Yeah, I mean, how bad will that look if they can't re-sign him next year?
Austin Matthews. I mean, they're stacked. They could be a good team this year. Same thing. You know what I was just thinking about too, by the way? This gets me completely off track. We mentioned it, what was it, Friday night, that Lindsey Vonn and PK Subban are now engaged. And Seeley at the end of the sportscast was like, yeah, we're cool with that. We like PK Subban. I'm like, I don't know. Have we gotten to that point where we like PK Subban? Do we remember what he did 2 seasons ago?
I feel like most people are probably, if you're really diehard Avs fan, you're probably not quite over it yet.
I don't think I'm over it.
No.
I don't think I'll ever be over that.
Because not everybody likes Lindsay either.
No, I know. It's true. Yeah, but, well, she's Colorado's girl, though, right? Doesn't
She
everybody?
is.
Everybody here tends to like her.
Yeah, but I mean,
You're saying there could be a match made in heaven, basically. Not everybody likes either one of them, so.
well, the other thing too is you never know. Maybe PK wants to come to Colorado.
Maybe he does.
See, then I'd get over it
Would you?
very quickly.
Would you? I mean, this is a lot like, Katie, my fiance, who is a lifelong Avs fan, always has been. And, everybody knows about my history of being a Red Wings fan beforehand, said that she can't stand seeing former Avs go to the Red Wings like Patrick Nemeth just did. Goalie. Boy, I already forgot his name. Who's
Jonathan? Or number 41.
Frenchman? No.
31, sorry. Yeah, him.
Boy,
Bernier.
Bernier, thank you. Boy, how easily we forget. I remember I was on the Bernier bandwagon for so long and thought he should have been starting over Varley, and then he ended up starting naturally, I guess, because Varley got injured right before the playoffs last year.
As he is wont to do.
And then Bernier got injured before the playoffs, but yeah. But
got
Katie
Andrew
says
Hammond.
you can't like these players anymore when they go somewhere else. I'm like, but you liked them before.
And she's marrying you.
She is. She's okay with it. Well, apparently it was part of the deal that I had to, come
Switch.
to the other side, right? It's part of the contract, even though most of my family wants to kill me now. Every time they see me post something on social media about going to an Avs game or getting tickets, my first ever season tickets in life to an Avs game, yeah, that did not go over very well.
Safe to assume none of them are following our Twitter account for this?
Yeah, right. I don't think so. Perhaps we should save this for another time, though, because I know there are some former members of the 9 News sports staff who want to roast the hell out of me for it. Being one Matt Boyer, who now works for the Broncos.
And Aaron Matus.
And one Aaron Matus, who every time I tweet about this podcast, Aaron says something, like, when are we going to do that segment? I got a text from Matt Boyer today that said, when am I coming on the air to talk? He goes, because he needed my address for something. He goes, oh, by the way, there must be a problem with the post office because I haven't gotten that invitation to be on From the Cheap Seats yet. Come on, Matt. It's only the 2nd episode. But anyway, so Tom Dubois on Twitter, when I posted looking for some questions for the show, he wondered, what does the goaltending situation look like for the Avs this year? We know that it's obviously Philip Grubauer going to be in that number 1 spot. The question is, can he maintain what he did during the playoffs last year? Because everybody had high hopes for him in the regular season, and he just kind of proved to be kind of meh during the regular season. And then in that final stretch before the end of the year last year, he blew up, and then he was just the biggest resources the Avs could want. The question is that streaky or is that not streaky?
I don't know. He was pretty consistent down the stretch.
Yeah,
so
it doesn't feel that streaky.
it
to
doesn't
me.
feel it. So hopefully he'll do it because they needed consistent goaltender.
Yeah.
Because they haven't had it for about 2 or 3 years, really.
I mean, look at Varley. He had was he ever consistent?
2013.
But then he gets hurt.
Yeah.
So whenever he starts getting consistent, he gets hurt.
He gets hurt at the wrong time, too.
Right before the playoffs. And then you've got Pavel Francouz. I think I'm pronouncing his last name.
One of those two.
Francouz. I think we called him Francouz for a while, and then I think it just sounded like broken English for a while, or broken French for a while. I think it is Francouz.
That can be a question for when we get someone from the Avs organization.
We
on.
probably, when we actually interview him, we might need
It
to
could
know
be a
his
segment
name.
how to pronounce everybody's
Yeah,
name.
right.
Tweet your thoughts too.
As you can tell, we are real diehard fans. We can't pronounce half of the names on the team. But he's backing up. And the few times that we saw him last year, he was pretty impressive. It wasn't very much that we saw him at all. I think it was, 2 or 3 games?
I think so.
Maybe
yeah.
like in only a couple of periods in each game. But I think I know for a fact that the Eagles really, really liked Pavel Francouz. And, I mean, not that that's a judge of anything, but
And when we saw him up in Loveland once last year, and he looked real sharp.
Yeah, he looked great. So I think that's a solid backup, but we'll see. So that's the goalie situation that Tom was asking about. There's also a rookie, and I can't remember his name right now. Who once again, diehard fans of this team.
So do you remember 3 minutes ago when we were talking smack about this guy for like his own little podcast?
Yeah, from his mom's or from his room upstairs. I was waiting for his mom to like knock on the door.
And he says, "Shut
Get
up,
outta
Mom.
here." I'm working on my videos, Mom.
Dinner's ready.
Who are you talking to up there? Why do you keep backing it? Because everything was a jump cut, by the way, because he would get to the end of a sentence and then he would appear in a different part of the screen talking about something. I don't know. We want to go through the new rule changes for 2019, which notably, this was from a while back. I think that the league made this announcement, but I think it's of interest to us because of some of the terrible things that we witnessed last year.
Landeskog?
Yes, which, as we mentioned last week, if you listen to Nathan McKinnon's interview on Spit and Chicklets, he admits he thinks Nate was offside. I still think that you need to have irrefutable evidence to overturn something like that. And I was really hoping that the league would come through with some sort of like, you got to have irrefutable evidence before you overturn something like that. Right?
You would hope.
Yeah.
I was waiting for the league.
I do like to imagine, though, that situation back in the late 90s, if Waugh had been in net, how ballistic he would have gone.
Patrick Waugh, he didn't have a temper, did he?
Oh, he was good. But you love a goaltender like that.
Did you ever interview him?
Oh, yeah.
And what's he like he just...
Very cordial.
Really?
Yeah.
Even though he was...
Yeah, he was always very good in the interviews.
Kind of a loose cannon.
Not too bad. He was funny.
I mean, I'll never forget, and that was something that was just across the league, that first game that he coached here when he almost got to a fight with...
Yeah.
Who was that? Who was the coach on the other side of the glass?
Anaheim.
The Anaheim head coach?
Was it Boudreaux at the time, I think?
Might have been.
Bruce Boudreaux.
Knocked the glass down between the two benches.
Yeah. All right, so new rules this year. We'll go through them. If a team is about to go on the power play, ices the puck, it will still begin the man advantage with a face-off in the offensive zone. Makes sense.
Yep.
Seems like a quick little needed to fix some sort of small thing in the rules. A team that knocks off the net accidentally or on purpose, leading to a stoppage, will not be allowed a line change. The opposing team will be able to pick which offensive zone circle they want to take the ensuing face-off. Makes sense.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And also,
It's not a big thing, but
I've long wondered, especially when you see the intentional. I never think that gets penalized enough because I think it's really tough to prove
it. But
prove the intention.
Just take the ambiguity out of it there. And
Yeah. Oh, so the next rule kind of clears that one up too. If a goalie knocks off the net on a breakaway, it will result in an automatic goal for the attacking team.
automatically?
Yeah.
Wow.
You get
I
some
like that.
arguments with people about what constitutes a breakaway then.
On a
but-
breakaway, not just like you'd think maybe a penalty shot. I can understand that. That rare circumstance, but on a breakaway.
You see McKinnon bearing down on you one-on-one, like, oh God, just knock it loose.
You're not kicking the net at that point. That's an interesting one.
That is.
If a shot on goal from outside the red line results in a frozen puck, there will be no line change allowed.
Basically extending icing for the most
Yes.
part.
Yeah.
Makes sense. A player who loses his helmet will have to go to the bench or put the helmet back on properly before participating in the play. The only exception is an immediate play on the puck. If a helmetless player makes a play on the puck, it will result in a minor penalty. Here's the league once again.
Safety.
Here's the league once again. I get the safety argument of that, but here's the league one more time, adding to this man advantage rule. And I don't know if they're just they really want to see power plays and penalty kills, but this reminds me of that one where you throw the puck out of the zone and all of a sudden you've got a penalty. The delay of game penalty, the delay of game nonsense.
I understand where they're coming with it.
I may be the only person who feels that way, but they talk about how they want a fast-paced game, and I get that that's a delay of game type thing. Hi, Jeff Dressel. Jeff Dressel is coming in. Yeah, the sports team. He's here. He's nervously looking in here. This is the fun part of having an open studio. The whole sports department is here. Anyway, the delay of game, I've always thought that slows the game down.
It does. I mean, but what are you going to do? With the helmet off, you have to do something.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like football. As soon as a person without the helmet touches it, they call it.
Yeah. So I think they're saying immediacy, and then how do you define immediacy? So how do you define, like, I'm next to the puck? Are you saying if you hit me and I have the puck on my stick, that's an immediacy play? Or is it I'm in a scrum and I'm at center ice and somebody throws the puck my way and my helmet falls off?
It'll be interesting in training camp because they'll bring all the officials to each camp and say, okay, this is what it is. They'll show them.
Oh, so they actually go through.
I'm sure they're going to have to because some of those you'd be like.
Yeah, the red line rule to me is interesting. And that one's going to need some explaining.
So I imagine maybe the league should have that.
Yeah.
But the officials come just to show, okay, this is right, this is wrong.
Yeah.
They do it in the NFL in training camp, so why not in the NHL?
It's a good idea. That's a good idea.
Especially for officials on Sharks games.
Yeah, we should definitely bring
a refresher
or at least
course.
If you're going to be an official in the Stanley Cup playoffs, you might want to go through this course to learn the rules. The Coaches Challenge will be expanded to include reviews for black and white missed calls. I love this. That should have resulted in a stoppage of play, a.k.a. hand passes, pucks in netting, and high sticks before a goal in the offensive zone.
So I agree with you that they absolutely need to be able to do this. That's a good thing. I do like the idea, though, that you love this idea, but we're railing against delay of games, slowing the pace of the game down. But you're all for, like, extended coaches challenges.
Well, I'm all for extending the coaches challenge to that, especially when it's something egregious, because I think that happened to the Avalanche earlier this year, if I'm not mistaken, in a Chicago game where Patrick Kane scored, or was it Kane that scored or Taze? I mean, Taze batted the puck down with a high stick, and I can't remember which one of them scored in OT. And his stick was way above his shoulders when he knocked the puck down, but nobody whistled it down, and next thing you know, game over. And that would have resulted in a whistle.
Absolutely.
So I would be all for that. I think that it happens more often than not. But yes, you're right. I'm very hypocritical for, I suppose. We all saw the hand pass thing. That was the biggest load of bull I've ever seen. That thing with St. Louis and San Jose, for those of you who haven't seen it, maybe are occasional hockey fans, that was it was the end of, I think, Game 3 or something like that. In St. Louis, there's a blatant hand pass that leads to a goal, and the refs are like, yeah, sorry, we can't go back and look at it. I think that Toronto should have the ability to review what leads to the goal no matter what. And I think that all goals should be looked at in review. If we're going to have that review standard for some goals, we should have it for all.
Well, the NFL does that. Every touchdown's reviewed before they have to see 2 or 3 replays before they said it's a good touchdown.
And with how fast the replays come these days, it doesn't even slow the game down. And you're watching replays of the touchdown or the goal in this case anyway. Why not let Toronto chime in?
Yes.
That's right. I was going to add this one. This one also seems hypocritical of me to like this one as well. A successful coaches challenge will result in a minor penalty for delay of game. A second unsuccessful challenge will result in a double minor. I agree with this one as well. I think the minor penalty on the coaches challenge, if you're going to take the time, you better be right. Wow. And I would have liked to have seen the Sharks get the minor penalty, even though they I guess they wouldn't have, because Toronto somehow, some way, could zoom in closer than any other camera in the league to see where Landeskog's skate was. But I do like that idea because I think sometimes it's a giant waste of time.
Imagine the video guy getting yelled at by the coach when he's wrong.
Yeah, because I don't even know how that works at Pepsi Center, is it?
Well, I think a lot of times the video coach or who somebody's watching tells them go down and tell them to challenge it.
Because calls down like you need to challenge this play.
Because I've seen in the Rockies clubhouse area, Warren Miller, the spokesman for the Rockies, took us back there when we did a live show there. He said, hey, you want to see this? This is cool. This is where the video coach sits and watches for anything that might be awry in the game and tells somebody to challenge it. But I think that's interesting. Referees are required to review all major penalties to confirm the penalty classification. This one is a direct response to the Vegas Golden Knights beef with the Sharks. Majors cannot be changed to minor majors can be changed to minor penalties, but they cannot be rescinded altogether. So if you blow the whistle and you call something, it's still going to be a penalty.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's egregious enough that you called a major in the first place, odds are you didn't completely make it up out of nowhere.
Yeah. Yeah. And then referees can rescind a double minor for high sticking if it's determined that the high stick came from a teammate. I did not know that you couldn't do that already.
That be automatic?
If your teammate basically like cuts a hole in your face and then somebody else gets a call for
the other team for it.
Yeah, I would hope that they would have had that ability before. Maybe. And I kind of wonder like who's making that rule to begin with and doesn't come up with that idea.
Well, maybe Toronto should be looking at that too.
Maybe they should. I don't know. I think there are a few more rules that should have been added to that. Most importantly, the offside. That coach, I don't think you should be able to challenge something for an offside call that's so delayed. If the ref didn't catch it in the moment, I don't think you should be able to, 30 seconds later say, hey, that doesn't count because it's offside.
Right.
But maybe I don't know.
I mean, my biggest beef with that one is still he wasn't in the play. He was clearly going off the ice, had no impact on anything during, before, or after that play. How does that even matter? And I was pretty sure that was part of the rule. If the guy is actively in the process of leaving the ice, he's not considered part of that.
It happens all the time.
Offside, yeah. Because they put the doors on that side of the line.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe they need to redo the doors.
Yeah.
Maybe they should. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to start asking Johnny about the days of old. You're listening to From the Cheap Seats, a fan podcast on the Avalanche from 9 News.
In one trendy Denver neighborhood, right next to a golf course, we find an old home almost hidden in plain sight.
He's been missing for more than a year.
Inside, a 69-year-old man
Basically disappeared.
so removed from life and people, nobody knew he vanished.
Well, there's no way he was there when we searched him.
Unsanitary conditions hindered their investigation. More after the coroner's report.
Who's to blame? How does a man become
He was found in his own
Inside
home.
lost at home? Check out the entire second season of Blame, wherever you listen to podcasts.
Back here from the Cheap Seats, Steve Staeger, Geoff Sawtell, along with 9 News sports photojournalist Johnny Kurt, who has... How many years have you been here now, Johnny? Are you afraid
35?
I would say, are you afraid of saying that?
No.
35
or 36.
35 years when a standard TV career lasts, what, like 2?
It's like a running back.
He has a longer career.
I'm surprised. And wait, now, you've been here 35 years. Have you had injuries from the job? Because I know, like, a lot of shooters will have issues with their shoulder, things like that. Have you had
No,
any?
I haven't.
You haven't?
Not really, no.
You're doing something right. It's because he's a sports photog. He's probably stretching beforehand, like, you stretch with the team. You cover a lot of Broncos games. I know that because partially because you can be on the sidelines, you can shoot the games. The thing a lot of people don't understand about the NHL and the NBA is that once the game starts, we can't shoot anything because
The
there's
rights holder.
exclusive broadcast rights. But you spent a lot of time. Did that used to be different?
We used to, if we were doing a feature or something, they would let us shoot some hockey.
Just every now and then.
Every once in a while, yeah.
Where on the other hand, now Tom Cullen and I go there to shoot a feature, and he's just legitimately shooting video of Mark Castellano playing the organ.
Right.
And we get yelled at in the press box because we're shooting, like the camera is focused on him, and we got yelled at in the press box.
That's
So,
all right.
yeah.
You still got the piece done.
We did. It was a good story. And I get where they're coming from. They don't want other people taking the rights. I get it. But you spent a lot of time in the locker room. You spent a lot of, and you could shoot practices and things like
yeah.
that. Yeah. What's your wildest moment covering the Avalanche, do you think?
Well, I mean, when they first got here, it was new to everybody. As you well know, the problem with Patrick Waugh was Roy, and that became a big story. But,
Is that a thing where you do the news piece of going around and like
Yeah, they
pronounce
did.
this guy's
I
last
did.
name? Did you?
No,
Oh,
I
they-
didn't.
oh, yeah.
But, but I don't think everybody realized when Patrick Waugh got here, this is Patrick Waugh.
Yeah.
I mean, Dave Delosier, who used to work here, we both said, Patrick Waugh? I mean, that's kind of like having Elway, because that's what type of player he was.
Yeah.
But that first Cup years, I mean, that's first taste of Stanley Cups playoffs here. Just so magical.
Well, I
It's
mean,
such a great time.
It's the first ever championship this city
Yeah.
ever saw.
And it was, but everybody got on board, and it was just fun. I mean, when you cover a Stanley Cup playoffs, I mean, that's 8 weeks that you really don't know what you're doing. It's just like you win, you lose, you get on a plane the next day, and you go. But when they got to the finals against Florida, I mean, I was back in the vomitory during all those overtimes, and when Uwe Krupp scored, it was like, they won, and it was like, this is the very first one, and it was crowded, but we had to make a decision where we're going to go live. Are we going to try to get in the locker room, or are we going to go to the hallway, because people were going hallway to the press? Well, we made a decision to go in the locker room, which was the right decision, and it was the first time. I mean, we went live for an hour and a half straight in the locker room.
Wow.
And I would change batteries.
Like on TV.
Oh, yeah, because my battery.
So like the camera shuts off and I'm sure there was somebody back in the studio here or something.
But it was cool. It was with me and Ron Sapolo in the locker room.
Wow.
And players would be sitting on top of the lockers, back down, and then just having a great old time, because, I mean, that's special when it's Stanley Cup playoffs. And with that team, I mean, that team was just on fire.
That team was something. And it started that rivalry that everybody remembers. But was that your first ever champagne shower?
I would say so.
How do you prepare for something like that? Because you're not the guy celebrating. So
well, they love smoking the cigars, too.
Yeah, in the locker room.
But, that team, they had some great games against the Blackhawks, too.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's pretty, go to the United Center for a hockey game is pretty special, too, with the organist for the national anthem, how it gets real loud. But, no, it was unique. It's fun. It's one of the Stanley Cup playoffs are probably one of the best fun things to do to cover.
Yeah.
Because it's so magical.
Oh, man. I think about because you were you in a tarp or anything like, or like, what were you wearing?
No, I don't think I was wearing anything, because I just had what I was wearing.
Like shorts and a shirt on or something? Jeez.
But yeah.
That's a ton of fun. I feel like over the course of all these years that hockey players have changed quite a bit in the locker room. Because I remember, like, back in the 90s, it seemed like people would say whatever was on their mind. And I don't know that you get that kind of honesty.
Probably not. I mean, the one is like Draper after Lemieux hit him.
What did he say? What was the line? I always forget.
Looky what he did to me.
Oh, yeah. Look at my face. Yeah. And Dino Cicerelli, I think, right after that said something like,
his hand.
Yeah.
He
like
couldn't believe he shook his hand.
I can't believe I shook that guy's hand when he came back and saw Draper's face.
Right.
What was that night like? Do you remember much of that night?
Well, I do. I mean, I don't know how you felt like, how the shot was, how a cheap shot it was at that time. I mean, we just, it's the Red Wings, so you're like, everybody's hitting hard. I mean, as you noticed, I think they changed the way poles are around the ice. That can't happen.
Yeah, they changed the dasher boards, I think,
yeah,
too, right?
And I think so. It's hard to say if he meant to put him into that, but man, that was a vicious hit.
And talking to Claude Lemieux after the game, it didn't seem like he was that fazed by anything like that.
He's a guy that love you have on your team.
Yeah,
just like Darren McCarty for the Red Wings.
Yeah. What was it like going into those buildings during those nights when those teams were so against each other?
Well, I mean, Detroit's pretty passionate, as you well know, with the Red Wings, and that barn was just kind of a crappy barn, really.
Yeah. Are you talking about the Joe Louis Arena?
Joe Louis. I mean, I love the history.
That place was a dump.
But when they built it, they forgot the press box.
They did?
Yeah. They had no press box, so they had to take like 2 of the top rows out and figure that out.
Which is kind of like what it was like at Pepsi Center for a little while. They had a couple of rows out, and they just moved the press box now this time, I think, right? Didn't it used
the
to be
Pepsi Center?
Yeah, it used to be in a different spot. Now it's...
Well, I think they cut it down because Kroenke has a little special thing
a little suite up there.
Yeah.
What, they don't let the press hang out in the suite?
No, I think the special people get up there with him.
Oh.
But it is, I mean, and they cover that team because when you when you covered the Red Wings back then, they always had 2 dressing rooms, kind of like how the Avs, and it was always 8 deep, trying to cover and get interviews from Sigurov, McCarty. And I always thought McCarty was good because he was just stand-up guy, say what he is, and he's a very good player.
Those guys would tell the truth, too.
Yeah.
I mean, back then, either side, everybody would say what was actually on their mind. And I just don't know. I don't see that in the locker. Maybe I see Gabe do it every now and then, but I don't really see guys getting that into. And maybe it's, I don't know if they're coached by the PR folks or something.
I think they might be.
Yeah.
There's some of that. And I think, the younger kids now growing up with, YouTube as a thing that's always been there, they know how easy it is to end up out there for the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And it's just always in the back of your mind now.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite memory?
It's always the Stanley Cup. It's the thing about Stanley Cup is all the overtimes are fun.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
There's
We just
nothing
don't know.
Like Drury, he scored a bunch of them, and it's just like when you're on the road. I mean, not saying you feel a part of it, but you're covering, so you do. When they win, you get excited. You really do, and you can't wait to get in the locker room to get the reaction from Drury if he scored it. I mean, he wasn't the greatest interview, but it was fun. It was great. And but when they lose on the road in Stanley Cup playoffs, you always know there's the one player. Okay, he's the one that's got to talk today.
I'm just going to get a bite from him.
Well, but I think the players say, "You're up."
Yeah.
I think that happened when 2001 when they lost in New Jersey one game, and it was like that. But then they came back, lost that home game, and then they had to win 2 in a row.
Jeez.
Yeah, lost game 5, yeah.
But they went there, and it was like. And the good thing is when you're with the other media from the other stations, I mean, you all live it together,
Yeah. It's kind of cool. I think a lot of people don't realize that. Everybody thinks that we're like Anchorman and we all fight with each other. But really and truthfully, the other people, other than, we're obviously trying to get better information than everybody else, but we are friends and we do get along. And
like if you're in a really big scrum of trying to get an interview, everybody tries to help that everybody has a shot so you can get a good interview.
Wow, you can really hear that pretty well from the hallway. This 9 News.
We got a party back
Yeah,
behind.
somebody's going on. Something's happening. Who was your favorite interview?
Ooh, that's a good
Who
one.
was good? Who was because I always find if I'm even in my news career, there's somebody I'll be like, I'm going to go talk to this guy because I know they're going to give me something good.
Well, I don't know. Well, that's hard to say. I mean, Patrick was good.
Yeah.
I mean, I liked Forsberg. I loved the way Forsberg played because he was so quick. He was do it, and he just didn't bring it on, he would say.
And he was also a real nice guy in the locker
Right.
room, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He was just kind of known as.
A lot of all those guys, Adam Foote was great.
Yeah.
I mean, they were those teams. Everybody was really good.
Dan Highnote.
Dinah, Alak was very good. They were all very good. I mean, that's why it's really enjoyable covering hockey players.
Yeah.
And I know I had a hang up from 95 until 2013. We talked about Darren McCartney earlier with the Red Wings. He was just he's the thug for the Red Wings. Like hate him. And then we did that special on the leading up to the outdoor game, and we got a nice long sit down interview with him. Just the nicest guy you could ever hope to meet. I mean, he was great stories, great sound bites, but would talk about how much, he'd get riled up in those games and he would hate to play against these guys, but just the level of respect he had, and you couldn't help but say, okay, maybe I was wrong for hating him this much.
By the way, that's Dressel in the hallway, in case you're wondering. It's Dressel and Rod talking to Rod Mackey, who will be a future guest on this show at some point, I'm sure.
That's if he can remember anything.
Yeah. Dressel, do you have a question that you need Johnny for, or are you just here to be a fanboy? Oh, okay, good.
But those are players that you love them when they're on your team. You hate them when they're the other team.
Exactly.
I mean, if McCarty was on the Avs, everybody loved him.
For sure.
You were talking earlier about, Johnny's had a kind of a front row seat to some of the rebuild years.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like since Waugh retired, since Sakic retired, this is, probably the third attempt at a rebuild the Avs have done. And, do you have any idea why it seems this rebuild actually seems to be working when the other ones just sort of fizzled out?
It almost feels like they took Sakic took his own blueprint when he was young, when they had that core of him and Forsberg and Foote. And it looks like, because you remember what Zach had said when these guys were young. He said it was like when we were in Quebec when we were young, that this is how we're going to do it. And I think maybe he just looked at himself when he was young and had these core players, you know. When you had the 3 players, I mean,
Yeah.
you can make a lot happen now.
Well, it's interesting if you look at the way that the league has adapted over the years. Gone are the days of the really big, tough guys and the strong. But I feel like the Avs have always been the other way. I feel like they've always been quick. They've always like kind of prided themselves in speedy play. They've had a couple of bruisers, kind of like they do now.
Parker.
Yeah.
Parker.
Rod's favorite player, I think.
Well, and like Zadorov. I mean, he's
Yeah.
a fan favorite. He's great now. I think that they are playing on that blueprint, and I think Sakic just kind of knows that works. And he may have been one of the, other than probably Yzerman in Tampa Bay.
Right.
I think he may have been one of the ones who kind of knew, like, this is how you develop a squad.
And him and Yzerman are good friends anyway.
Isn't that funny?
Well, notice when they played on the Olympic Canadian team, he'd always give Yzerman 19, and he would always be 91.
That's cool.
I mean, that's a lot of respect, and, you know,
Yeah.
that's cool.
Do you have a favorite player this time around? Is it McKinnon or who is it?
I do like McKinnon just because he's super fast.
Yeah.
He's tough.
I think McCarr is going to be a staple here for a long time.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are going to like Cale McCarr. And
You figure he's going to get bigger, too.
Yeah.
I mean, stronger, not
Yep.
bigger, but, you know, to come what he did and did what he did during the playoffs last year, it surprised me. I was like, you really want to sign him and bring him and play him right now? And boom. Also, he's on the power play. He's on the defense. He's playing defense.
And looked good at it.
I mean, he proved everyone wrong. Because I think there were a lot of people in this building included. I remember we've had, we talk hockey basically every morning with Tom Green. And I remember all 3 of us were like, I don't know if this is a good idea to bring this guy up.
Right. But, I kept on, watching college hockey because we have DU. But when all those national people who follow college and the NHL said the one player that's ready to play right away was McCarr.
And he was.
Definitely.
And, I mean, they were saying that in the middle of the college hockey season.
It's interesting. There are a lot of people saying that maybe this is just a big. Let me make sure that my computer's still on. It is good. I thought it stopped. I thought it went dead. I thought I ran out of battery. There are a lot of people saying that maybe that was just luck, and
I don't
it hasn't
think it's
been
luck.
proven, and he hasn't had to grind it out like you do in an NHL season. But
He was pretty consistent all through the playoffs
yeah,
once he got here.
I think he's going to be so much fun to watch this year.
Yeah, I mean, you got to give credit due with Sakic and for the draft they've had lately. I mean, they've done a pretty good job.
Yeah.
And I know a few years ago they completely overhauled the scouting department. And nice to see that looking like it's paying off a bit.
Yeah. Well, Johnny, I cannot thank you enough for taking time. I know you're always here working on something, so I figured one of these days we'd grab you and pull you in here.
All right.
Little did I know it'd be tonight, but you're always welcome on this show.
All right, I'll do it again. Thank you.
All right.
All right.
All right. Well, that'll do it for us this week. Episode 2. Wow. They let us come back and do another episode. Let's see if they'll keep letting us do episodes at some point. Thank you for listening. If you need to get at us, at Steve Staeger on Twitter, at @fake_Dante is Geoff Sawtell on Twitter. The show is at 9 Cheap Seats. Thank you for reminding me because we had a problem with the other one. But thank you for listening, folks, and hit us up. Let us know what we should talk about. We don't have much to talk about until the season starts, so you're welcome to join in. We'll see you next week.